What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Cheap Seats. I thought it was going to be an intro. My bad. Welcome back to Cheap Seats Podcast. We have not been on for a little while, but we got a lot of community conversations to get into. So, what better way to bring in your June than listen to some Cheap Seats? I'm fired up. I'm ready to rock and roll. But before we go any further, we got Kyle Edwards, Celtics. He's super happy. His Celtics are up 2-0. How you feeling about that, Kyle?
Look, man, it's been a while since they hung a banner. I'm ready for one.
Yo, listen, the crazy thing is before I'm bring Jory in, because I'm gonna ask Jory right now, because I think the Celtics and Lakers are tied with 17 banners, and y'all going for 18. But like, I was really like examining that, and like, do you know, like, you might know this, I didn't know that 16 of their 17 banners were before 1990. That's kind of embarrassing.
Yes.
Like we can't quote 17 banners when 11 of them are before 1970. So like before the ABA merger. They're not real banners. I'm just saying. In the upper right corner, we got Jory from Jory Sports Stories. You can catch on Hoop Dreams, TD Queens. How you feeling tonight, Jor?
I'm all right. I'm just over. Basketball has a little tight spot today. I'm ready.
Okay. Well, I can't wait to talk about some basketball tonight. There's going to be a lot of basketball conversation. We got stuff going on with the WNBA, the Olympic roster, Caitlin Clark, a lot of different things to talk about college basketball wise. It's definitely going to get passionate in here. And then we're going to talk about some NBA Finals conversations. I have an NBA Finals conversation. I was an NBA Finals conversation. So we're going to talk about basketball tonight. It's going to be hoops tonight. I'm going to share y'all out. I need to make sure this gets shared out. I literally was looking to share y'all out, and then I realized that we were on air, and I was like, oh, shit. So, Kyle, why don't you introduce our first question, and then I'm going to get this stuff out.
All right. Actually, you know what? I'll pass it to Jory because I know she had one to start off with for women's basketball, so I'll pass to her on this one.
Okay.
My question is regarding the coverage of Caitlin Clark. Do you happen to think it's too much and too uneven, especially with the good quality basketball that we're seeing from other teams? Or do you think, well, of course, well, it wasn't really a question. I just wanted to talk about the overall coverage of Caitlin Clark and how we're so focused on a 3-win team when there's other teams that are rolling that we could be focused on. I understand she's the cash. I understand she's the up thing, new coming hottest thing. But she had won 30 games. They've won 3 games. There's that have been playing pretty decent basketball, like the Stone Lynx. I know places are missing a pretty key right now. That's probably why they're 5-4. But there's other things talking about.
Well, I love that. All right, so I'll address that first. And Jory, you're cutting out a little bit, so if I miss anything, I apologize. But you were like kind of like auto tuning. But I do want to say this, right? I don't disagree with you. I wish people were talking about women's hoops before these last 2 years, and I'm sure for someone that watches women's hoops every year, it can be annoying the amount of coverage that goes into Caitlin Clark. And I get that. Like, let me just be very clear. I understand why it would be annoying for someone that watches the W year in and year out. Now, I'm a casual W fan, right? Like, let me just be clear. I watched women's basketball when I could watch it. It's definitely not a priority. I don't have it over NBA. I don't have it over NFL. It's definitely like something I watch when I'm sitting at home and the Phillies aren't on and I can catch a game. If I can see an Aces game or a Liberty game or a Connecticut Sun game, I'm gonna turn it on. I enjoy it. My favorite basketball player of all time in women's basketball has been Diana Taurasi. I always loved her. Huge fan of her. And then I really like Skylar Diggins. But I didn't like the way Diana treated Skylar when Skylar was in Phoenix. And I'm a Skylar fan to begin with. So I think a lot of this stems back, and I don't want to go too off the beaten path, But if you remember the Final Four coverage when Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird were covering the women's Final Four, they were like giving an ulterior broadcast. And Iowa played against UConn. And if you don't know, Diana Taurasi, one of UConn legends, obviously pulling for UConn. She's pulling for her team while covering the game. And she made a comment before the game started that she thought UConn would win and she thought Paige was better than Caitlin. And those comments got blown up. And then later in the game, when Iowa won, she made another comment saying it's easy to look like a god around 18-year-olds, but when she comes to the W, these are grown women, these are professional women, and it's going to be different. There'll be a transition period. And both those comments felt like hater comments to me and really turned me off of Diana Taurasi, who's been one of my favorite women's basketball players of all time. So the reason the coverage is so much, Jory, is because the WNBA was absolutely bleeding money in the net negative for year after year after year. Now, is that the WNBA's fault? Absolutely not. Should more shows like First Take be talking about it before this year? Absolutely. But the reason Caitlin gets such a conversation is for this fact by itself. Fever attendance last year, 20 games. Total attendance for 20 home games for the Indiana Fever, 81,336. That's averaging a little bit over 5,000 or a little bit over 4,000 people coming to their game per night. Do you know what their attendance is right now through 5 games? 82,857. So they've already surpassed last year's attendance. The Atlanta Dream moved their game from their own arena to the Atlanta Hawks facility. The Los Angeles Sparks moved their game from their own arena to the Staples Center. Numerous teams are doing this to fulfill. Oh, and by the way, the Fever and Washington Mystics, right? Am I right about that when I said that? I don't want to mess that up.
Yeah.
The Fever and the Mystics had more people at the game than game 1 of the NBA Finals. Now, granted, Washington Stadium holds a little bit more in Boston. They were both sellouts. So it should be clear there. But they had more people at the WNBA game between the two worst teams in the WNBA than game 1 of the NBA Finals. What a mark. What a happening for the WNBA. So while I understand people that follow the W on a regular basis can be annoyed at the conversation, everything getting drawn back to Caitlin Clark. And do I think media members are a little bit insane the way they're covering it? Like Angel Reese will have a game versus somebody else, not Indiana. And they're like, oh, how do you feel about Caitlin Clark? And blah, blah, blah. Like, it's a dumb question. Like, they're not even playing Indiana. Like, let that go. But I do understand why the coverage has been so dramatic. And if I'm players in the WNBA, I'm thrilled that we got charter flights now, finally, and the amount of money and coverage that one player is bringing into the league, it can't really be underestimated. We can't overlook it. It's been the number one topic on First Take for basically a week. That's good. That's good news for WNBA. Whether it be for bad reasons or not, it's good news for the WNBA to get. Remember the old expression, any publicity is good publicity? I think that Caitlin Clark has brought more eyeballs onto the game. And I think through those eyeballs, you'll get people that fall in love with the game with or without Caitlin Clark there. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll piggyback somewhat off of that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, George.
But then you have people who are talking on these podcasts and on national television like they know everything, was tuned in a few months ago. That's the part that's really, because they're loud and wrong. And when you tell them that they're wrong, they don't want to hear it.
That's the definition of a casual fan, though. So you're right. The NBA has a ton of them. The NFL has a ton of them. And the thing about NFL casual fans is the reason I don't go watch NFL games at the stadium, because I can't stand people that don't know what they're talking about. When Darius Slay gets beaten, or when Darius Slay gets told he's terrible because he's playing cover 2 zone and he gets beat over the top because the safety didn't get there in time, and I hear a guy in the stands going, Darius Slay sucks. He's wrong. That's not Darius Slay's spot. It's the safety's fault. But it's a casual fan that doesn't understand the game says shit like that. So, yeah, it's good for the WNBA to have casual fans, though. It is. It's very good to have it.
I wish they were quiet before they something they don't know about. Like, learn. Take the time to learn before we open our flaps.
I do want to read some stats before Kyle goes. WNBA games were sold out more than half the time, which is up to 156% from last season. 4 out of the top 5 moments with the most engagement on tip-off week showcased Clark, Reese, Brink, Kate Martin of the Las Vegas Aces, all which are rookies. The WNBA app monthly active users is up 613% compared to last year. WNBA merchandise is up 236% to last year. WNBA stadiums were filled to 94% capacity, which is an all-time record. And the WNBA store set the single-season record for sales in store history, with transactions up 756% compared to last year. I just want to make that clear as to why that's good news. Yeah, Kyle. I want to hear. I would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I understand it that, Caitlin Clark has brought in an influx of fans that the league has been, crying out for attention. I understand that. I do see where Jory's coming from, where it's like, it's cool for y'all to come in only because of Caitlin Clark, so you're following her career. But that's where, ESPN, Fox Sports, or whoever can now educate those fans on, hey, you may not know, the Vegas Aces, pretty good, won the title. Asia Wilson's like a, walking double-double, MVP candidate. Like, mix up the coverage, especially like First Take, because I feel like that's where a lot of this is obviously stemming from, because they're like the name brand, the whole thing with Stephen A and Monica and all that good stuff. But it's just like, as upset as he got by her comment, he like further proved the point what he says that he hasn't talked about before because fans didn't care, which was basically her point was like, yeah, the league was struggling for attention. That's because they needed big brands to kind of shed some light on them. So the fact that they ignored them until now, it's supposed to be helpful, but then it's not. Because like you said, there's a lot of people who tune in for Angel Reese. I don't know the last time First Takes talked about Angel Reese other than probably the Caitlin Clark stuff.
Yep.
Cameron Brink, I'm pretty sure they've never mentioned her. Cardozo, like all these, like all the college players that, everybody was so hyped about last year that are now into the league, it's like they've forgotten about all of them except Caitlin Clark. And I get that she's the most popular one, but like you got to bring in more players into it, and teams as well. The Sun are doing well. Storm, you have people like Jewel Lloyd or Ogunbowale. Like, these are players that you can expose the casual fans to, and whether they pay attention or follow them, that's on them. But at least throw those names out there, highlight how good they are, because it wasn't that long ago. I mean, there's a lot of guys who would, laugh and mock the WNBA because they would say like they don't know anybody, the teams aren't all that good. Like, those are the fans you can start spoon feeding some, bits and pieces of info here and there and kind of see what they do with it. Because now it's to the point where they're so Caitlin Clark centric that I feel like this will probably merge into another question. But the fact that she's not going to be there in Paris now you have a bunch of people like, oh, I'm not watching then. And it's like, that's a bit extreme for me, that you're not going to watch just because one player isn't going over there. I think that's crazy.
Do you think those people would have watched if there was no Caitlin Clark? Do you think those casual fans that have come to the WNBA, that have been watching women's basketball, would have watched anyway?
Probably not.
Because Angel
Reese isn't going. So I don't know.
I thought you were saying like they might watch for Angel Reese.
Yeah, she's not going either.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, there's no outrage over that.
I thought you were talking about one person.
No, I'm just saying, with those casual fans that are saying they're not going to watch the women's Olympic team because Caitlin got snubbed for the team, which I don't think she got snubbed. I'll talk about that in a second. I actually think it's the best thing that could ever happen to her. It gives her a month off to recover and kind of like learn the Indiana Fever system and be able to work with her teammates. If I'm being honest with you, I think she shouldn't have went to begin with. Now, I do think putting a 41-year-old Diana Taurasi on the roster is probably not the greatest move in the world. Why Arike Ogunbowale is sitting at home, which to me is absurd. That's the biggest snub of the roster.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's so silly. But if I'm being completely honest with you, I don't think they would have watched Olympic basketball anyway. And I think the argument for why people wanted Caitlin Clark on the roster would have been they would have sold a ton of merchandise. They would have put a lot more eyes on the game. And whether she was on the roster or not on the roster, they're still going to win gold, is what a lot of people believe. So why not have her on the roster to sell merchandise and put more eyes on the product? That's the argument for it. By the way, once again, let me be clear on my stance. I think it's a good thing for her to not go. I think it's a good thing for her to earn her spot. But I don't like the answers that are coming out from USA Basketball and the unnamed veteran sources. Just say it's Diana Taurasi, because that's what it is. Are saying that they didn't want her to go because like her fans, her group following would have such a problem if she wasn't playing. Like that was the reason they didn't invite her, was because her fans would be upset. What'd you say? Jordy, you're completely broken up. You're frozen and coming in and out. Kyle, what's your thoughts on that? Like maybe reset? I don't know. There you go.
Yeah. I like it's the tough part when you're a league trying to grow, because you're gonna have to go through this period of time where you bring in fans that don't know much about your game. So you have to kind of cater to them while trying to stay true to your hardcore fans. And I feel like that's where kind of Team USA was stuck between, because I've heard, a lot of people that are part of the process that are saying that these players have been part of Team USA for like 3 years now. This has all been a process that they've been going through. And for Caitlin Clark, she's now coming in. So now trying to throw her into that group might not be the best thing. So obviously 4 years down the line.
That's not fair though. Because there's 1, 2, 3, 4 players on the team that have no Olympic experience. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 players who only have one Olympic experience. So they haven't been part of the team for this long term. And by the way, Chelsea Gray's hurt. She hasn't played. And if she eventually plays, that'd be great. But she hasn't played all year. So like, and there's 4 Las Vegas Aces players on the roster. Like, I don't know why Arike Ogunbowale is not on there over Chelsea Gray. Am I wrong to say that?
No.
Chelsea Gray hasn't played.
Yeah. And they're basically saying that, but they're saying that if Chelsea Gray couldn't do it, I guess the next 2 up would be Caitlin Clark or Brianna Jones.
And I have a problem with that.
I do too.
Because why is Caitlin Clark the top preference over Arike? That don't make no sense.
Well, the reason Caitlin Clark wasn't asked to the roster was said multiple times is because her fan base would have an issue with her not playing enough and being the 12th person. You said that's not what? I want to hear that.
That's not the real reason. Because how is she going to get her minutes? She's not going to play even if she was on a roster. She'd be taking up a roster spot to me. Because
Okay.
there's so many other people that they could put on that roster instead of her that they did, even though Chelsea Gray is questionable because I know she's injured. They could have put Enrique in Chelsea Gray's spot. They could have put anybody else. So to put her in there when she's clearly not ready for it and the game hasn't really slowed down for her just yet is setting her up for failure.
I don't think she would play much, but if I'm being honest with you, every statistical mark in WNBA stats this year, Caitlin Clark has outperformed Diana Taurasi, except 3-point field goal percentage. She has more points, rebounds, assists. She has better free throw percentage. She has a better field goal percentage. She has a better defensive efficiency rating. Like, there's not one thing on the basketball court that Caitlin Clark hasn't done better than Diana Taurasi this year, except 3-point field goal percentage. So, like, why is Diana on the roster? Like,
She's a veteran. That's why.
But that's the point, though. She's has 5 gold medals. Why does she need 6? Like, why does she need to take a spot up? And why I agree with you, I don't think Caitlin Clark is, if she's one of the next people up, I think that she should be one of the next people up. I think the next 3 people up should be Arike Ogunbowale, Caitlin Clark, and Skylar Diggins. I think they should be the next 3 that are listed on the roster. Now, to be honest with you, that UConn connection will not allow Skylar on that roster. For whatever reason, they do not like her. That's why she had issues in Phoenix. That's why she's in Seattle now. They don't like her. I don't know why, but they've treated her poorly. Arike Ngubala is not on the roster. Why? Because she's not part of the Aces family or the UConn family. That to me feels like it's high school. And I feel like it's cliquey. And I don't think they're bringing the best 12. And I don't think they're bringing the 12 that represent America. And I don't think what 12 are they bringing? Are they bringing friends of friends? The 12 they think will play together? Is that what it is? I don't understand it. Can someone help me understand what 12 this is? This isn't the best 12 players in the world. Because if that's the case, Ungumawale would be on the roster. He's like 4th or 5th. Out of everybody on this roster, right? I'm going to read the roster because I have it up. Kayla Cooper, Phoenix Mercury. I'm not saying Kayla Copper, sorry. Phoenix Mercury. I'm not saying that she doesn't deserve to be on the roster, but it doesn't hurt that she's Diana Taurasi's teammate. Brittany Griner. She's played 1 game. Brittany Griner's on the roster. She played 1 game this year. Sabrina Ionescu, get it. Jewel Lloyd, get it. Kelsey Plum, get it. Brianna Stewart and Asia Wilson, best 2 players in the game. Yeah. Diana Taurasi's 41. Alyssa Thomas is unbelievable. I get it. Jackie Young, I don't know. Why is she on the roster over Ogunbowale? There's nothing Jackie Young does better than Ogunbowale. Not one thing on the basketball court. Don't get it.
I don't know. That's where
you put up Anthony Price. Can you put up Anthony Price's comment? I really want to comment on this.
Yep.
You think Clark is out because she's leading in turnovers? I'm going to answer that question for you. She is. She's leading the league in turnovers. That's absolutely a fact. So I'm going to answer that question for you, Anthony. I hope you're still listening. I know you asked it a little while ago, but I'm going to make something very clear to you. Every other rookie that walked into the WNBA walked into a role. Angel Reese, Cardoza, every other rookie walked into a role. Caitlin Clark walked in there. This is your offense. You're the point guard. Run it. By the way, you have 1 week to learn it, and then we have preseason.
A hot mess.
Sir, that's a joke. She walked into running the offense. That's not real. That's not like realistic. Could you imagine when Kevin? Do you guys remember Kevin Durant's rookie year?
Ooh.
He was terrible. He was awful.
Sure was.
He shot the ball 27 times a game. A common stat line for Kevin Durant's rookie year was 11 for 27. And Seattle was terrible. And then they drafted Russell Westbrook, moved to Oklahoma City, and the rest was history, right? With Caitlin Clark, she walked into the worst team in the WNBA. That's why they had the number 1 pick. And they're like, There you go. Run the offense. And then she opened up versus Connecticut, New York, Connecticut. The hell is that? You gave her the Drew Holiday of the WNBA, Brianna Stewart, and then the Drew Holiday of the WNBA. What are we doing? And then said, run the offense. You got a week to learn it. Have fun.
It's so poorly built and poorly coached. They have no identity. You've had back-to-back number one picks for a reason. She walked into a hot mess, and the coach don't know what the hell she doing.
I don't disagree with you.
Because you have two number one picks. They have two different styles of play. You got one who's a shooter, and you have one who's more of a post-up player. Now, what would you do if you had two players like that? Try to use some sort of a pick and roll. Try to make them work together.
100%.
What she's doing is spotlighting Clark and freezing out the other one when that whole roster with them two playing together and playing along off of each other could be something special. But she's ruining it. I can't stand that lady.
And it even goes deeper than that because they have a couple of number one picks. They have a number two pick, a number four,
a number four,
like a couple of number fives on there. Like they have a roster full of high draft picks. Yet you throw Caitlin Clark into the mix, and it's like, I don't know what to do with it. And part of that might be she went from Women's March Madness, draft, preseason, season starting. Like there was not that much time in between. But then again, that's still on the coach to make it at least simple until you get a break, and then you can expand it out, not just throw a basketball out there and be like, Caitlin, dribble around, try to get open for a three, launch it, and we'll see what happens.
Facts.
The Fever knew they were getting Caitlin Clark for how long? They knew for a minute. So they could have planned, schemed with the roster that they have, because now people are treating Aaliyah Boston like she's a scrub because she's getting froze out of the whole damn team. And I don't like that. Because they're poorly run. Lord. And then you have well-run teams not getting the right coverage. But I get it. I digress.
So let me ask you a question, Jory, because I feel like that you're coming from the correct place. Like, I feel like that what you're saying is correct. Like, well-run teams should be receiving more coverage. But, like, I think the argument is the chicken or the egg. And, like, I'm explaining to you why I think it's that. Because when there was well-run teams last year and the Aces played the Liberty in the finals, in one of the better finals you'll see between two of the top teams in the WNBA, it wasn't getting the coverage it deserved. Now you have someone that's bringing the coverage there. Like, you don't want to lose the attention. So, like, for someone like you, this has got to be annoying because you watch it all the time and you're seeing coverage of a 3-9 team that doesn't have playoff aspirations. But for, I guess, can we be fair weather and say 60% of the fan base at this point? Or casuals that are watching the game due to this year's rookie class. And by the way, it's only going to get better, right? Because when Juju Watkins comes out, I'll tell you right now, that girl's going to get coverage, a ton of it. And when Paige Buchers comes out next year, listen, you could be creating a dynasty in Indiana. Like, stuck all year, get Paige Buchers as your number one pick, and start a dynasty between Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and Paige Buchers, and fire that head coach and create a dynasty there. That could be a dynasty. That could be one of the best teams the W's ever seen with Paige, Aaliyah Boston, and Caitlin. That could happen. But, like, it's like if you build it, they will come. We're at the field of dreams right now. And I think it needs to be, to your point, Jory, I think it needs to be a little bit more than 90% Caitlin, 10% rest of the league. But it still is good. It still has to be 65% Caitlin, 35% the rest of the league, because the majority of the viewership is coming from Caitlin Clark. And that's just proof based on the road splits. Like, how many people are watching their road games? How many people are selling out arenas to go see Caitlin's games. They're not doing this for any other rookies' games. No one else is drawing this type of attention. So am I right or am I right? It's a joke.
Even though
Mm.
I could say that the Sky have sold out quite a few games too, but that's because they got the Twin Towers up there. Even though Cardoso hasn't gotten going yet, but she will be.
Yeah, but their attendance is only up to 235 people per game. They went from 7,700 per game to 8,000 per game. That's what their attendance is. Yes, they sold out games, but one could argue that if you skew the sellout that they had when Caitlin Clark played at Chicago and take that game out, their attendance is identical year over year. It's identical. Now, I think they should be getting more coverage. I think Angel Reese is highly marketable. I think Kim Cardozo is highly marketable. And you can market these women 100%. But when you see a team going from 4,000 fans a night to 18,000 fans a night, you got to pay attention. That's a huge gap. They have 5 home games and they're at 82,000 in attendance. I'm not a mathematician or anything, but that's 16,000 per night. Plus, not to mention their road split. The girl is an attention grabber. Whether you like it or not, she's an attention grabber. Now, there's a huge factor as to why and that could be another discussion, why she attracts so much attention. We've seen Breanna Stewart, who is 4-time college basketball player of the year, 3-time national championship winner. Straight white girl, did not get the coverage that Caitlin Clark did. So what's the reason that she is so polarizing? I think it's because she does things with the 3 ball that are remarkable. She pulls up it reminds a lot of NBA fans of what Stephen Curry is. And I got to give her credit. She had 3 things that she did. Look, as much as flack as people have been giving Caitlin Clark for the attention that she's getting, the hard fouls that she's getting, the welcome to the league moments that she's getting, she's handled it with grace. She's answered the questions the right way. And she didn't choose to go to Iowa or LSU. UConn or LSU or Tennessee. She chose to stay at Iowa and build that program up. That's not and by the way, did you guys think it was any bit funny that the head coach of Iowa moved on after Caitlin left? Yeah. No, I'm going to stay and keep building this program up.
I knew that was going to happen. She had been there for how long? They had been there for how long?
I don't know. I'll check for you though.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that's an interesting part of it. Now, part of the reason why she is so popular also was the Angel Reese factor to it, because Angel and LSU were the bad guys of women's basketball. Yet Caitlin Clark at Iowa, seen as like pure basketball going up against evil. Like, they played it that way. Part of that's because Kim Mulkey was somebody that isn't the most likable. So the fact that she was coaching LSU, that like trickled down to all the players. So that brought in a lot of casual fans who just wanted to see her beat them. And then they kind of just followed with her after that. But yeah, I agree. Like, Breanna Stewart is. Oh, go ahead.
No, I just didn't want to get off the LSU comment for a minute because you make a really good point. But there's another thing that comes into that point is it's a mixture of things, right? The first thing is Kim Mulkey. A lot of people want to see her lose. Yeah. And if you don't remember, Kim Mulkey is the one that basically completely disowned her own player, Brittany Griner, when Brittany Griner was dealing with everything that was going on in Russia. She basically well, don't break the law. Oh, well. Didn't have any remorse or care for Brittany Griner, who was her player. The thing that also is brought up very often is how polarizing and how this is. I hope that this comes off the right way and the way I mean it, but how unapologetic that Angel Reese is for the person that she is, and I love that. I love that attitude on her. I love how unapologetic she is for having a personality. But when you are an African American woman and you have a bold personality, and you're playing against Iowa, you're probably gonna get the villain role because there's a lot of white people that are looking for a reason not to like you. If that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense, and you said it eloquently.
I was trying to get that out eloquently and not get it out, not make it sound so bad.
That's the hard truth.
That's definitely a factor.
And some of those fans are the ones that are trickling down to the WNBA saying weird, out of line, out of pocket stuff. That's the part I don't like. But I get the whole marketing thing. It's just some of her stands. My Lord.
Oh, you're absolutely correct. And because I liken it to, it's not her fault that they are who they are, but it allows, and I think, Jory, if I could guess, and I don't want to say that you're not a Caitlin Clark fan, but like I'm just taking a guess because the way you're coming off, and I know that's not the way you mean it, you probably like the way Caitlin Clark played basketball at Iowa. You probably like the way she is as a basketball player, but because you watch so much women's basketball, because you watch the W so often, it annoys you so much that you're constantly on the other side of Caitlin Clark discussions that friends, family, or people that you're debating with think that you don't dislike her, that you dislike the woman, when in reality, you don't dislike her. You just don't like that the coverage that you're used to of the best teams and the best players in the WNBA isn't the same. Is that fair?
That's fair. That's exactly why I'm so over it.
That's my opinion. Now we're gonna get to the fun question. I'm gonna spin this and I want to ask your honest question. Do you think it was a smart move for USA Basketball to not invite Caitlin Clark? Now, before you answer, I'm not saying, because I been on record. It's a good thing for Caitlin Clark to not go play basketball in the Olympics. It's a physical game. She wouldn't have got much run, but the good thing for her would have been she would have been able to practice and create a fellowship with some of the best players in the WNBA. But I'm only asking in the stance of USA Basketball. Do you think it was an intelligent move for USA Basketball to leave Clark off the roster?
Yes.
Can you give me your reasoning for that?
Reason, like you said, she probably wouldn't have played much. And if it's when you're going against the world, I know what you said about you not thinking that the 12 best athletes aren't on the USA women's basketball team. I get it.
Well, they're
But when you're
absolutely not.
a global competition, you pull from the 12. Like usually how these things go, I know you said it's being kind of clicky, which I do agree with, because there was more players that could have been on that roster that weren't. I do agree with you. But in a sense, you have to get the 12 best available. I understand Caitlin Clark mania. I get it. But I don't think she was one of the 12 best available to put on a global stage so you can win a gold medal. That's my thought on it. It's nothing to do with the stands. It's just a pure basketball stance for me.
So for you, it's a pure basketball stand.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you the same question, Kyle. Do you think that it was a smart move to leave Caitlin Clark off the USA Basketball roster?
Yeah, I'll say yeah. Looking at the team, I feel like if you're going to try to put her on the team, then you have to pull somebody off. I don't know if I would necessarily know who to do that with. Plus, I think looking at the same Caitlin Clark fans, I just feel like if she was on the team, it would turn to a situation where they'd automatically say she should be starting. Then if she's not starting, that's like a whole conversation. And then it'd almost be like every game that USA plays, she would almost overshadow Team USA at that point. And then then I think at that point, a lot of people who were like Jory, who would be watching it so they could see, oh, let me see Asia Wilson dominate on the world stage. But then the whole broadcast is about Caitlin Clark and her coming up and her making Team USA and how great is that? It would turn a lot of them off even more on her. Not saying that Team USA should worry about that, but I do think that's probably something that came across their desk when they were putting the team together. And I can also say, like, if you want to market Caitlin Clark, there's other ways to do it. You can put her in commercials. You can do what the league's done, where she's basically on TV all the time with their like nationally televised games. You don't have to throw her on Team USA as well, because she'll get another chance at like the All-Star game. She'll be able to go there, showcase herself to a broader audience, and she'll kind of get that experience with other players as well. So she can get it without going to Team USA. But I guess I understand where her fans want to see her there because they want to just see her be the best right away. So she goes gets a gold medal. Like they probably lose their mind over it. But yeah, for Team USA, I do think it was smart. And I see what you were saying about it too, Gene. It's like since she finished at Iowa, like she's been going nonstop. Because even I mean, the Fever played the most games early on than any other team. So she's been going like 100 miles an hour for a long while now. And if she gets that break when Team USA is playing, you know, she might be better off in the second half of the WNBA season, which would probably be more beneficial to the WNBA. So I do think it was smart for Team USA to leave her off for, you know, a couple of reasons.
Okay. I'm just going to ask you a question. Do you think they brought the best 12 players?
I mean, no, especially if you're looking at one being Chelsea Gray, who's not even healthy. So I can't say she's one of the best players if she's not even healthy. And Griner as well has been out for a while. Now she's back now, so it makes it a little bit better because I believe, you know, in her return, she put up some pretty good numbers. So she's showing that she still has the talent there, and plus you need size and everything. I understand that. But the Chelsea Gray one is the one I'm going to be interested to see if she's actually able to go to Paris. Because coming back from injury at this point and then trying to get into game shape to play over there, I don't know if she has enough time. And then we'll have to see who the replacement would be. I do agree with you. I probably wouldn't take Clark at that point. I would say Agunbawali, would probably be a better option. But I mean, if you're not going to put Caitlin Clark on the original 12 and somebody drops off, will they make the same decision to not put her as a replacement?
You can't. You've made the decision that you didn't put her on the roster because of how polarizing she is. And that's the thing that bothers me. If you would have just came out and said, right now, we're trying to bring the 12 best players in the world, and you didn't bring Diana Taurasi, and you didn't bring Caitlin Clark, and you put Arike Ngumbalale in the spot of Diana Taurasi, I don't really have much argument. I can't really argue with you. Yeah. But when you look at, there's 12 teams in the WNBA, right? There's 12 teams. And 9 of the 12 players on the WNBA, on the women's Olympic roster, are from 3 teams, 4 being from the Aces, 3 being from the Phoenix Mercury, who are a below 500 team, and then two of them being from the New York Liberty, which deserve, obviously. But 9 of the 12 players are from 3 teams. It feels cliquey. And I feel like Diana Taurasi, being the leader of the pack, the 41-year-old that has 5 gold medals, just put plays in. Like, and then Asia Wilson's like, I'm not. Asia Wilson can literally say, I'm not playing unless you bring my teammates. And it's the Michael Jordan effect. If Michael Jordan didn't want Isaiah Thomas there, Isaiah Thomas wasn't playing. So I don't think they brought the 12 best players in the world. And that's the part that bothers me.
I will say, the Caitlin Clark stands, they have to wait 4 more years, because I bet you in 2028, that's when we'll see the Caitlin Clarks, the Angel Reeses, the Cardosos start. They'll probably be all on the team. Because if you look at this team now, especially with Diana Taurasi, she ain't going to be playing in 4 years. That lady was
4 years ago.
Years old? I kind of thought that too. I didn't think she was be around 4 years ago.
Yeah, she on her way out. And then I don't think Brittany Griner's going to be
was her last one. I thought 2020 was her last, like, hurrah. I thought they were all talking about winning one for get Taurasi 5 golds. That was the whole move. Now we're trying to get her 6. She better
So
not
they
start. If she starts, I'm gonna lose my damn mind.
like by 2028, they will have the experience. They will know. I feel like I'll be more comfortable with putting them on the Olympic team come 2028. Not
So
now.
you don't think rookies should be on the Olympic team?
Now, Candace Parker was an outlier, but she was the MVP that year too. So there's that.
What about Breanna Stewart?
Brianna was a straight dog. I get that. There's
Caitlin's
selective.
not. She's the all-time leading scorer in college basketball.
I don't like in
I'm
those
just
cases.
pressing back. That's all. I'm just pressing back.
I got you. In those cases, they were clearly ready for the Olympic team. They were some of the top players just coming out. Now with Caitlin Clark's place, you can kind of there's some muddy water right there for me.
Okay. I think the talent in the WNBA has gotten better since when Breanna Stewart and Candace Parker came into the league.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. I follow that. I just think Gino Auriemma coaching the team that Breanna Stewart got added to as a rookie had a lot to do with it. And it just feels clicky. I know Stewie's great. She's great. We all know that, right?
Thank you.
But it feels clicky.
Ain't Dawn Staley coaching it this year?
No.
I think it's Crystal Reeve, isn't it?
Yeah. It's not Dawn Staley. I wish it was Dawn Staley.
Yeah.
I'm going to check, though. I think you're right.
I don't know where I got that from. I know it wasn't Gino that was.
Cheryl Reeve.
Oh, Cheryl Reeve. I said Crystal Reeve. Yeah, Cheryl Reeve. And like Tebow and all those other guys.
Reeve is taking the mantle from 2020 coach Dawn Staley. So Dawn Staley coached in 2020.
Okay.
It's the Minnesota Lynx coach.
Yeah.
And they're
Good
doing
for her.
The Lynx are.
They are. They're 8-3. And no one better be arguing why Nafisa Collier's on that team. But she is a dog.
She's having a great all last season when she was really good.
All right. I think 48 minutes. Look, Jory, this is the truth, though. Let me ask you a question real quick. You've been on cheap seats, what, like 30 times at this point?
A long time, yeah.
When was the last time you remember talking 48 minutes of women's basketball?
Never.
So
I get
maybe it somewhat is a good thing. Some of it. Now the crazies that are now real quick before we wrap up women's basketball, because we haven't been on air since the Kennedy Clark hard undeserving foul.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was unnecessary.
Completely unnecessary. But that's not the biggest problem I had with that play. They were talking trash back and forth to each other. Caitlin caught her with inadvertent elbow. Hit a shot, talk shit, then got hit. That's what happened, right? We all watched it.
Yep.
Now most people that didn't watch it didn't see the whole. They just seen where Kennedy Clark just runs over and shoves her in the back. And look, she's got a history of that, right? That's who she was. She was drafted 4th overall. She was cut from 2 teams for behavioral issues. She's got a history of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
The problem I had with it had nothing to do with Kennedy Clark, had nothing to do with Caitlin Clark. It had everything to do with the way Angel Reese reacted. I hated that. If you don't like Caitlin, just say you don't like her. Stop saying there's no beef, that you guys are friends, it's just competition. Stop saying that. Y'all don't like each other. It's fine. We're okay with that.
And then she turned around and said what she said. Of course. Angel,
I hate that.
I love Angel's personality. Sometimes she can get to learn when to shut up.
Yep.
Like with everybody else.
She got up off the bench and clapped and celebrated the hard foul. That was the problem I had. And this is just 1 month, almost to the day after the presser where she was in tears talking about I'm a human being and you guys put this ridiculous pressure on me and villainize me in the way you speak to me and treat to me, which I 100% agree with her. during that press conference. But
Mhm.
don't be the villain. Don't say you're not the villain and then do villain shit. Like, everybody wants to be a lion until it's time to do lion shit. Don't say you don't want to be the villain and then get up and applaud a hard foul. I hate every part of that. And I don't think that Angel Reese, I think that what she's doing thinks of jealousy. And she has nothing to be jealous of. She's a national champion, All-American, top 5 drafted WNBA player. Stop getting interviews and be like, oh, well, people are watching the WNBA, not just because of Caitlyn, but because of me too. Don't do that shit. That's not what you need to be saying.
That's haterism 101.
100%. And that's part of my issues that I had with Angel. And I kind of wanted your thoughts on the whole thing. With Kennedy, with Caitlyn, with Angel. I think the Chicago-Indiana rivalry is going to be fun to watch for the next 3 to 5 years.
Considering they just right up 65 from one another. Like a 4-hour. Yeah, Chicago's about a 4.5, 5-hour drive from Indianapolis. It'll be an interesting thing.
And I'll say this. If I'm Angel Reese, I'm super glad I have Kim Cardozo on my side now.
Yeah.
Because the last time those two girls met, Kim Cardozo handled business. I'm super happy that girl's on my side. Like, that's the girl I want. You right here, right next to me. That's my friend. That's my friend. Yeah, I'm sorry, Jor.
My thing is, what Kennedy did was definitely unnecessary, but I still don't think that people were talking about that for 2 whole days after that happened. It wasn't enough to garner 2 days worth of attention. She did not go full Draymond and choke her out. She hit something. Now, Kennedy does have some of those Draymond-ish tendencies with fighting and all of that. She has character concerns. I get it. And then she went around and said, oh, Caitlyn Clark don't do nothing but shoot threes and da-da-da-da-da. Haterism right there, too.
You're absolutely correct.
But Caitlyn Clark also started that. So and then the whole competitive people, that whole situation made people forget that sports are competitive no matter what the gender is. Competitiveness is going to lay in everybody. It's a little bit of everybody. Whether you're a boy or a girl or whatever you want to call. If you want to call yourself a damn tree, do it. But you're very competitive at certain things. Why was it blown to this level when there was so much other things like Draymond, even Draymond choking out Rudy, even though I know the media really don't like Rudy Gobert, didn't garner this. It didn't. That whole situation made me mad.
Yeah. Before we wrap up on women's basketball talk, I do want to bring up the Stephen A. Smith, Monica McNutt conversation. And this is so tough for me to say out loud. And I feel like that I can't say it. And I feel like it's like one of those things that remember earlier when I was struggling to get my words to talk about, I don't want to put Stephen A. Smith in the same sentence as an abusive husband. But the conversation that he had on his podcast when he was talking about, well, I put you guys on and no one talked about the WNBA more than me. It felt like, oh, I could hit you. I pay all the bills at home. And it gave me the feeling of, well, I take care of you so I can do what I want to do. And it's almost as and I know what Stephen A. Smith, this is really tough to kind of say, but it's almost as if you ever seen that racist white boss that's just like, well, I pay your salary so I can tell you what to do. like, I know that that's not a racist white boss, but like the way Stephen A. Smith came off was like a sexist like conversation about, well, I give you guys them, I put you on. You wouldn't know who Monica McNutt was if it wasn't for me. Like that shit, I can't deal with that. That bothers me. Monica McNutt was a player in the WNBA. Monica McNutt's been on WNBA TV shows for 2 years. I don't
She
know.
calls Knicks games.
About her,
Like she calls Knicks games. Like Knicks are a brand. People know who she is. And I see.
even
I
with
know
the
where you want to kind of go with Stephen A. It's almost like an owner mentality
Yeah, that's
where
exactly what I'm trying to say. And
like
I can't
first
say it
like
out loud.
first take has become his like ego trip where he feels like he's the show because he's done it to Molly too on this like slick for like years now, where he'll check her on things when it's like she's there to moderate, but she's also a sports fan herself. Like she's allowed to give an opinion, but he'll talk over her. He'll like diminish her role. And he ran into some of this when certain guys who were on the show used to check him as well. Like Skip used to
Max,
check him, and they used to get into it. Max used to kill him at times,
that's
and
why
it
he
like
got
affected him.
rid.
Yeah, and those two are gone. This is the first time that a woman in Monica like stepped to his front door, kicked it in, and just walked in. Like she took him down to the basic level, and his reaction at the end, which was hilarious to me, was like, "Wow,"
Wow.
because he wasn't expecting that from her. Because to him, y'all are lucky that we're talking women's basketball, and y'all are lucky I'm bringing you on the show to talk women's basketball, and you're gonna call me out when this is my house that we're in. That's how it came across, and the fact that he went on his show after and like doubled down on it when they weren't there to defend themselves made him look worse. And then he basically did it again today where they talked WNBA once again, but this time Monica wasn't there. So they had Andrea and Chanae on, and he was basically like, once again, like, it's a privilege for y'all to be here to talk women's basketball. And then they would talk, he would just sit there and make these faces and be like, I'm gonna go last. I want to let them go. And then he'd like refute everything that they said in like a condescending way, like y'all talk women's basketball, y'all don't really know what's going on with women's basketball. And it's like
They played.
this is what they do. Like they know what's going on. It's okay that they don't agree with you, but he was just like, I don't know what Stephen A is going through right now, but it's not looking good with him, especially dealing with these women the past couple of weeks. Like Monica broke him or something. I don't know.
I'll tell you what, Shanae's State of the Union address that she
Yeah.
gave on Caitlin Clark and the situation that was going on was perfect. Couldn't word it better. And it just, sorry, Gedra.
Oh, I'm gonna just give you my spiel about Stephen A. Smith, but you can finish because I got a long-winded point for that.
Nah, go ahead. I just really wanted to talk about how I love the way Shanae kind of broke it down. It was like the W's always been physical, and every rookie that's come in has dealt with physical. And, is Caitlin getting it a little bit more? Sure. But she's getting it more because it's going to make her tougher, and it's going to make a beast and a monster out of her. And if they change the way it's being played, she'll never have that opportunity to wake that beast up. And I love that. She's like, I'm one of her biggest fans, but y'all are making too much of this. Yeah, George.
With Stephen A., what he did this morning and what he did with Monica, and I didn't like the fact that he went on his show and said I could have did less. That part, the whole thing was ugly, but that part right there stuck out. So why you only really did it because it's lining your pockets, not because you really wanted to. So he's coming across as an egotistical buffoon who thinks he knows everything. And he feels like he has this hyperinflated sense of superiority and importance, this arrogance that gives him this stupid audacity to either indirectly or directly disrespect people at will and think that he can go unchecked for it. This is why he's single. And that's all I'm gonna leave it at that. Because nobody's dealing with that. Nobody with some sense is gonna deal with that type of hairline. That's why he's single.
Nobody disagreeing with you. That's the sign of nobody disagreeing with you.
His
Well,
partner had the decency to have Monica McNutt on his podcast to try to break down her reasoning for her to explain herself. He went on his podcast, decided to take stupid, false, and false shots at her, talking about didn't nobody know who Monica McNutt was. First of all, Monica McNutt can ball. She covers the Knicks. Knicks fans don't play about her. She's been doing this for a minute. She's not just a scrub. She knows what she's talking about. Don't sit here and discredit her because she checked you on your own show.
fact.
He's a clown.
Oh, by the way, Monica McNutt, 34 years old. So in 20 years from now, 20 years ago, because Stephen A, I think, is 54. Let me check Stephen A's age. Pretty sure he's 54 years old. I could be wrong. 56. So 20 years ago, Stephen A. Smith was writing articles for the Inquirer in Philadelphia. When he was 34 years old, he wasn't who Monica McNutt is now. So if you want to talk down to people at 34 years old of what you've done for them, remember that when Monica's 56 and see if she's accomplished more or less than you. Remember when you were 34 and you were begging for an opportunity and Skip Bayless gave you an opportunity at ESPN. No one wants to talk about that. Everybody needs somebody to get an opportunity. Just because you're in the top spot now, just because you're the executive producer now, does not mean you get to look down on people that are 34 years old, almost half your age. And you're like, oh, you don't know who she was until me. Sound like an asshole.
Insecure.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about some NBA. Let's talk about some NBA talk. I'm ready. I'm fired up. Kyle, give me your question first, because I'm going to trash your boy in a minute.
Hey, that's all good. I figured that was coming.
Could be.
I feel like for me, it was just going to be like the way you thought the series was going to go first going in. After 2 games, what's been the biggest thing that's maybe surprised you or disappointed you in how the games have gone so far? Whether it's a coach, player, or
There's 3 for Dallas. There's 3.
okay.
Is one of them?
Go ahead, take one.
Because
Because
yeah, go ahead.
Because I'm like, Kyrie Irving, in 2 games, he's giving you he's averaging 14 points a game. You got a 16-pointer, 12-pointer. He's made
that's
his
one
shot,
of my 3.
but he's made his shot. He's made some unrealistic shots. I get it. He's still one of the best talents in the league, but he's not playing necessarily too well. And he is now 0-12 in Boston. That is not. And they did start booing him and telling him that they were happy that he left. But Kyrie's one of them. Dallas needs to realize that Luka can't do it by himself from the word go. He's gonna need some help from the word go. And their bench is horrible. Like game 2, they got a grand total of 9 points from the bench. 9. What are you winning in the NFL, NBA Finals with 9 points from the bench? Nothing.
Okay, so you nailed on 1.5 of mine. By the way, one of the things I've taken from these first 2 games is Luka Doncic. It reminds me so much of Larry Bird. It's unbelievable. He just if you didn't ever watch Larry Bird play basketball and you comment on Larry Bird today, I need you just to watch Luka Doncic play basketball and be like, that's how Larry Bird played basketball. The exact way Luka plays basketball, Larry Bird played the same way. And Luka's 25, turned 25 this year. He's got at least 10 more years to develop into what Larry turned into when he was 26. So I'll say this, and I don't know if Kyle will admit this. He's kind of an even keel, Boston fan, so I feel like I might get him to at least admit that the Celtics have gotten a lot of home cooking when it comes to the calls. I watched the game. Let me just be very clear when I say this. I picked Boston to win the NBA Finals before the season started.
Mm-hmm.
I had Boston this entire year. I said Boston's going to win it all. Opening night. I told y'all about the $500 bet I put, 4-1. Boston's going to win the NBA Finals. I had Boston in 7 before the series started, and I still have Boston in 7 because role players play much better at home than they do on the road. Boston's role players have played great, and I don't really think Boston really has role players. What I mean is Derek White, it's unfair to call him a role player. Drew Holiday, it's unfair to call him a role player. Kristaps Porzingis, it's unfair of you to call him a role player. Al Horford, maybe a role player. I still think it's a little unfair to call him a role player. But Dallas's role players have played absolutely dreadful. And that goes anywhere from PJ Washington to Gafford to Derek Jones Jr. And I'm not saying Kyrie's not a role player, but Kyrie's played underperformed like no other. Now, I watched that game last night, and I watched it with a friend of mine, and I picked Boston to win the series. He picked Boston to win the series. I have no dog in this fight. I just want to see good basketball. A lot of home cooking last night. The call seemed incredibly one-sided last night. And then I don't know how any official didn't see Jaylen Brown full-on shove that man in his back when he was going up for that dunk. And we're going to talk about a block by Derek White. He got pushed in the back. It was clear as day. And he gets pushed in the back. He shoots 2 free throws. It's a 3-point game with 44 seconds left. I'm not saying Dallas wins the game, but it could be a different outcome.
Point game is better than a 10-point, whatever that was. They lost by what, 18?
Game 1, we can't argue. Game 1, you can argue, even if it was bad officiating, it didn't have to do with 18-point difference. Game 2, there's a lot of missed calls. I just brought up the biggest one on the fast break, but there was a lot. I think that Dallas goes home and wins game 3 and 4. And then we're talking about it on next week. We're talking about, what is Dallas's adjustments have been? Nothing. Dallas went home and their role players played better. Kyrie played better at home because he doesn't have the crowd booing him every time he touches the basketball. He's not playing angry. And PJ Washington hit a bunch of 3-pointers, and Dallas looked great at home because they're on their home court. And role players play better at home. I think game 5 and game 6 are pivotal games. Can Dallas steal a game 5 in Boston to have the opportunity to win in 6? Or can Boston steal game 6 in Dallas and avoid a game 7?
Because this Boston team has only lost to, I know people are going to say the East is weak, but the East also gave Boston hell throughout the whole playoff.
Well, to be fair, they played Miami without Jimmy Butler. They played the Pacers without Tyrese Halliburton for 2 games. They've not had the toughest road. They played the Cleveland Cavaliers without Donovan Mitchell for 3 games. They've not had the toughest road.
But to only lose 2 games in the entire postseason is still impressive.
Both games. Well, wait, is it really 2?
They've lost only 2.
They lost
game 2 to Miami and game 2 to Cleveland. That's it.
Oh, and they swept. They swept Indiana.
Yep.
Oh yeah, they won both those games in Indiana. I remember. All right, my fault. Both game 2s.
Yep.
I forgot what I was saying the first time. Go ahead. It'll come back to me.
I would love to hear Kyle's thoughts. What stood out to you?
I think what stood out to me is, as battle tested as Dallas has been, because they said them getting through the West would have them ready, which has a lot of people in the media who picked Dallas to win, and I understand that. There are some things with that team that I don't know if just going to Dallas fixes it. One would be the defense with Kyrie and Luka, because one big issue that they have is, and I think where it worked with against Minnesota, both of those guys, like I'll give them credit, like they try harder than they used to, but they play like really good initial defense. They'll get in a defensive stance, they'll be in front of you. You kind of make one move, you get by them. They do this little hip bump
What?
thing. I don't understand what that is that they do. And it seemed like when they did it to Minnesota, those guys kind of fell off to the side and then they would get back in position. Against a Jaylen Brown, a Drew Holiday, Tatum, White, they're doing the little bump, but those guys are still continuing to the bucket. And then Kyrie and Luka are just resorting to reaching from behind. I feel like that's something that they continue in Dallas. I don't know if they can win both games in Dallas.
And the
So that's like
turnovers.
one. Yeah, and Luka turnovers, especially later in the game, because he's so gassed after having to score like 30 points just to keep them in it. And then he'll, throw it over to Kyrie trying to catch his breath in the corner. But then Kyrie can't do anything with it and just throws it back to him. And now he's like, crap, now I got to figure out something to do. That, I don't know, Jason Kidd's got to do something about that dynamic. A lot of the talk was Boston plays one-on-one, your turn, my turn. That's all Dallas has become. But the problem is Kyrie is supposed to shoulder more of the load than he has. And because he hasn't, Luka has a lot of tired turnovers in the fourth. Like that big play last night was, I think PJ Washington was bringing the ball up.
Yep.
And then it got deflected by Drew Holiday. Luka has it. He basically just falls back and throws it back to PJ, and Derek White jumps.
You know why he threw it up court? Because when the ball got deflected, they were at 7 second or 8 second violation. They were at 7 seconds.
Right.
So he was in the backcourt and he had to throw it up court before they got 8 seconds. So
but my thing is
there's just not one part of me that's going to allow you to blame anything the Mavericks are doing on Luka. I'm
not blaming Luka. I'm just saying that by the fourth quarter, he's having to do so much quarters 1 through 3 that he needs somebody to pick him up. That's why he threw it to PJ Washington. He's like, you bring the ball up, like, let me catch my breath.
Yeah.
But then PJ Washington gets in trouble and is now throwing it back to him. He's like, oh, again, and has to throw it back to him. That's I will never say anything bad about Luka. Luka has done what he's needed to do in this series. Kyrie, look, he came into this series like, Boston, you should be louder. Oh, I'm in a good place. And it's like, you've gone out there for 2 games. The crowd has gotten in your head and you've been off your game. This is why they still boo you, because it clearly still affects you. But then he'll go after the game and be like, I see what they're doing. I go walk down the street and they show me a lot of love. I don't know about that. So, and the other thing is, Mazzulla needs to get some credit. I've heard for 2 years people dog Mazzulla as a coach, say he's not that good. If you see the little clips from him in his huddles, like that guy is coaching his behind off right now. Jason Kidd is kind of the let's have fun. Just go out there, and it's like, I don't want to say Kidd's being completely out coached, but he kind of is, because I just feel like the Celtics are making more adjustments than Dallas are. Dallas just thinks eventually Kyrie's going to figure it out. I can't bank on that anymore. Got to do something.
Well, you have to bank on it if you're Dallas, because if Kyrie doesn't figure it out, you have no chance of winning the series.
I mean, that's true, but I feel like there could be little adjustments made. I don't know what it is, but I don't know if it's a rotation or because they're throwing Dante Exum out there.
I don't think that Dallas has been outcoached. I think they've been outplayed, and I think it's a totally different thing. I think Dallas is missing open threes. I think they're missing shots. I think that nobody outside of Luka has showed up for the series. Yeah, and I think they will when they get home. But like PJ Washington scored 30 points, almost 29, 30, and 30, 3 straight games in a prior series. He was 1 for 5 from 3 last night. Derek Jones Jr., 0 for 3. Kyrie Irving, 7 for 18, 16 points. Maxi Kleber was a joke. 4 personal fouls, 0 for 4, 2 wide open threes just missed.
So maybe that's one thing. Maybe Kleber just doesn't need to play.
Yeah.
I don't know what, do you dust off Tim Hardaway, say, hey, Tim, I'm giving you 5 minutes. If you don't score a bucket, you're going to sit down right next to me. Maybe that's the motivation he needs to go do something. They have to try something different at this point. They've gone 2 games doing the same thing. Oh, go ahead, George. Sorry.
I'm just saying, like, at the same flip of a coin, Boston has not shot particularly too well either. So I do think it's a little bit of both, outplaying and outcoaching. Because Joe Mazzulla is coaching his rear end off, considering his timeout usage, his rotations, the fact that Boston don't melt down in the fourth quarter like they used to. I'm so proud of them. My God, because I was so sick of seeing that, the fourth quarter meltdowns. They don't do that anymore. They can close out a game. So I think it's both. And the fact that they're adjusting to pretty much anything Dallas is doing pretty well, it's both.
They also can't bank on the home cooking because Celtics are undefeated on the road in the playoffs as well.
Well, I can bank on the home cooking when I watch the game, and I know that the game was called one-sided last night. It was called one-sided last night, bro.
But
all I'll say is the Tatum drives to the paint. I can't sit here and think that Kyrie and Luka, when they reach in and he loses the ball, they're hitting ball every time.
No, I don't disagree. I listen. I am just saying that the Boston Celtics are allowed to be much more physical, bro. Oh my God, the foul that they gave Kleber on Porzingis to give him 2 points at the end of the first quarter was one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. They're allowing people to play basketball, and away from the play, they call a foul when Dallas is in the playoffs to keep Boston in the game early. The push in the back at the end of the game was awful. It's a lot of home cooking, bro. Game 1, it wasn't. Game 2, it was.
I mean, I get that. I get that.
All right, I got my question, and we only got 10 minutes left, so I want to bring it up.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something right now. Jason Tatum's no Batman. He's not a Batman. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I don't care what Jason Kidd said. I'm not saying Jaylen Brown's a better player than Jason Tatum, but I'd rather have Jaylen Brown as my number 2 than Jason Tatum as my number 1. Jason Tatum, once again last night, shot the ball terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's a great player. I'm not pretending he's not. But he is not clutch. And I've watched time and time again, this man has absolutely pissed away big moments. Now, granted, you put him on the best team in the NBA. This is the best roster in basketball. There's no doubt about it. There's 8 bona fide studs on this Boston Celtics roster. Yeah, he could be the best player on a championship team. But it's a lot more Billups to the Detroit Pistons than it is Kobe Bryant to the Lakers. And I'm not saying Tatum's Kobe, but my point being is there's no one superstar on this team. I think Tatum's a star, not a superstar. And I think anybody that puts him in the top 5 in the NBA is out of their damn mind. Your thoughts?
I'll let Kyle go on that as the resident Boston fan.
I mean, I guess I see what you're saying. I can also point to where they say he doesn't have moments. I can point to, what was it, Game 6 against Philly, couldn't buy a bucket in the first 3 quarters, goes off in the fourth when they need him. That's a big moment. I could point to another Philly game when he dropped 50. That might have been Game 7. I don't know. That's a big thing.
And that was the game that the 76ers didn't show up for, and he was at home on his home court. I'm telling you right now.
I'm just saying, I'll just throw in it's still a Game 7. If he's not the guy that a lot of people are saying, he probably wouldn't have shown up then. But I get what you're saying, because yes, when I saw that game, Embiid and Harden wanted no part of it. So I'm gonna agree with you there. They want to no part the minute they jump off. I could look at a young Tatum going up against the LeBron-led Cleveland team in a
And a
game
lot.
7 when Mr. Kyrie was sitting. I don't even know if he showed up for that game. I think he had the little nose procedure because he was too jealous that they were winning without him. And he went toe-to-toe with LeBron, dunked on him and everything. That was a big moment. I feel like a lot of this has come from the Warriors series where a lot of the stuff they're saying about Dallas and their first trip to the finals and them kind of getting used to the moment, that was the Celtics against a Warriors team that had been there, done that. That's where that series was lost. So I get it. I know Windhorst did his thing about Tatum isn't getting the respect from today because of something that happened 2 years ago, which I think is stupid, but it is what it is. I think if you look at this finals run, the fact that he has not shot well, but he's leading in rebounds, leading in assists, and if you ask Drew Holiday, you ask Jaylen Brown, the attention that Jason Tatum is getting every time he gets into the paint makes it easier for those guys. And the fact that he doesn't have the ego to be upset about it, I feel like that should be a reason that, we're looking at why the Celtics are up 2-0. And you brought up Kobe. Look, Kobe went 6 for 24 in a game 7. Nobody cared in that finals because they won. Because Kobe knew he wasn't shooting well. He still took his shots, but he grabbed boards. He did all the other things to try to help them win. I feel like that's what Tatum is doing. And for whatever reason, a lot of the NBA media just look at, he didn't drop 30, so he didn't play well. But all the other things that he's doing is helping this team win. You think Drew Holiday gets 27 last night without the work Tatum did offensively?
But see, the problem is this, though, Kyle. Here's the problem that you're running into. I'm not saying he's not a great player. He's a great player. He can affect the game. But I'm so sick of hearing he's an elite player. He's not. He's not elite, bro. I don't.
Right, so you say he's not top 5. Like, who's your top 5 right now?
So
I'm not saying he is top 5. I just want to hear who your top 5
and Embiid are easy. Luka, Giannis, they're easy. There's no questions there, right? You got to question any of those 4. Then you have a whole slew of players that you can put. Like, you have him better than Anthony Edwards.
Isn't it kind of soon for Anthony Edwards?
He's better than him.
I saw Anthony Edwards struggle for like 5 games straight in the playoffs.
You have him better than SGA? Second MVP voting this year?
I like SGA. I feel like that's a conversation. Yeah. I think the Anthony Edwards one.
I still don't think I also don't think he's surpassed LeBron James. I don't think he surpassed Steph Curry. And granted, those guys will retire. And you'll be able to move up the rankings. But I have him 9 through 13 in that little realm right there. It's where I have Jason Tatum. And I don't think he's a superstar. I think he's a star. I think he's a good player, great player, not elite, not just. That's where I have him. Where do you have him? Just wondering. Do you have him ahead of everybody outside the 4 I named?
I'm gonna say I'm not disagreeing with you. Okay. If you're gonna say your superstar stops at 5 or 6 and Tatum's on the outside of that, I'm fine with that. Because some the names you brought up are all really good players. My thing is you have sections of fans who are trying to treat Jason Tatum like he's some role player because he's not going out there dropping 40 or 50 a game.
No.
And I'm because obviously you're not coming from that perspective, but it's that narrative and this whole thing about Brown, Tatum, who's better. Imagine if Jason Tatum wasn't on this team right now and Jaylen Brown had to basically be the number 1 guy on this squad. How would they look? They'd probably struggle if more attention is being brought to him.
I think they could still win the NBA Finals without Jason Tatum.
I don't know about that.
I mean, you got to replace him with someone. It's not like you're not replacing him.
That's true. Yes. Yeah. I mean, unless we knew who that was, yeah.
Jory, let me ask you a question. Take hate aside. I know you hate a lot of players. But just basketball players right now. I'm going to give you 10 players, and I might give you more. Let's see how you go with it. But I want to give you a player. I want you to tell me if you think that right now, Not in 5 years, not 5 years ago. Right now, are these players better than Jason Tatum? Can you help me with that? I'll start with easy ones. I won't even rack your brain here. Luka or Tatum?
Luka.
Giannis or Tatum?
Giannis.
Joel Embiid or Tatum?
Joel for his talent.
Jokic or Tatum? Jokic? I didn't hear you. Okay. There are 4 easy ones, right? Then let's go down the list. So right now, is he a better basketball player than Kevin Durant?
No.
No, I agree with you. Right now, is he a better basketball player than LeBron James?
And you're 21, and he's still doing what he's doing. He's
That's
up
6.
there, but not really.
That's 6. Right now, is he a better basketball player than Stephen Curry? Mind you, Stephen Curry shot 45% this year and averaged 27 points a game.
No.
Okay, that's 7. That's 7, right? Is that 7? I'm not keeping math well.
That's 7.
SGA.
Yeah, I was gonna kind of go on this one.
I'll give Jason Tatum over SGA.
Ant Edwards.
No.
So that's 8. And then you run into the Kawhi if he's healthy. Is Kawhi better than him? Devin Booker. Who you want? Devin Booker or Jason Tatum? Stats tell you D-Book is better. I'd probably take Tatum over D-Book.
Yeah, I would take Tatum over
I'll
Booker.
take Tatum over Booker.
What about a healthy Kawhi?
And Kawhi. I'll take Tatum over Kawhi because I don't trust Kawhi staying healthy. That I don't trust at all.
What about 29 points a game, 7 assists, Jalen Brunson?
I'm taking Tatum over Brunson.
I got Tatum too. I'm just asking to see if I can get a little bit of leeway. I have him 9 through 13. Me and Jory agreed on almost all of those. I have Luka, Giannis, SGA, Durant, Jokic, Embiid, Steph Curry, LeBron James. So that's 9. That's 8 players. I have those 8 clearly better than.
I would argue Durant. I saw Tatum and Durant go up against each other in that Brooklyn series, and Tatum had the better of them. But that's probably splitting hairs.
It was Durant and Kyrie. Versus a basketball team. That's what it was. It was Durant.
I saw Durant try to go one-on-one on Tatum. I saw Tatum blocking the shot that people said was unblockable on Durant. I saw Tatum go one-on-one with him. I think of right now, because I think Durant is slowing down a bit because of the injuries. Golden State has taken something away from him, and plus you got to put in the fact that Durant, the leader, I think knocks him down a little bit to some people.
Yeah, it's fair.
And so I would say Tatum, but if you wanted to argue Durant, I feel like that's negotiable.
All right, so you have him 8. I have him 9.
I was saying I didn't disagree with you saying that he's a star, not a superstar.
Jaylen Brown is a better Robin than Jason Tatum is a Batman.
I will agree with you with that.
But that's also, Brown, and I give Brown is my favorite player on the team, especially what he's done this playoff where he's kind of done this 180 turn with his personality, and he's like 100% business. He's done trying to play to the media who just constantly trashed him about the contract, the no left hand, and all this kind of stuff. Like, he's locked in. He's become the leader, which is one thing I said when they traded Marcus Smart.
By the way, that's another funny thing, that Jaylen Brown is now the leader, and last year Marcus Smart was the leader, but your best player's never been the friggin' leader.
Yeah, but that's just not his personality.
So, bro,
would you say Kawhi was the leader? Would you say Kawhi's the leader in LA with the Clippers?
No, that's fair.
Because that's not his personality.
I don't think KD is the leader in Phoenix either. So that's fair.
And that's probably why Phoenix is in the trouble that they're in right now.
That's fair. That's a fair. You give me Kawhi was a very fair rebuttal. Every other player, though. Jalen Brunson's definitely the leader in New York. Joel's the leader in Philly. Jokic is the leader. Like all these other players. Giannis is the leader in Milwaukee. All these other players, they're the alpha. Now, do I like the alpha that they are? Not all of them. Fun conversation.
Yeah.
I think in 2 games, we'll be talking about Jason Tatum having a very good game, whether it be game 3 or game 4, because I feel like that the superstars have to play better. Superstars. I'm giving him that could be a superstar. The superstars have to play better on the road. I think that'll keep them in one of the games. I think Dallas wipes the floor with them in game 3. I don't think the game's close.
Well, that's the game Dallas should look their best. They're down 2-0. You can't go down 3-0. So they need to that should be their best game. And for the Celtics, all they got to kind of do is hang around. That's basically what they did last night. They couldn't buy a 3, and you get to halftime, they're up by 3. That had to be demoralizing for Dallas. Then that shot at the end of the third quarter where Pritchard banks in the half-court shot, demoralizing. So, yeah.
Mo, you're absolutely correct. Mo, you're absolutely correct. Embiid is the guy in Philly, but he has some same shortcomings that Tatum has. Plus, he's got a little quit in him. He's got a lot of quit in him.
That's the reason why I don't know if I would cement Embiid over him. But I get what you're saying, because Embiid, the talent.
Dwarfed. Embiid is statistically dwarfed Jason Tatum in every statistical category.
But how's Embiid been in a lot of big situations, though?
Oh, Embiid doesn't have the roster around him that Jason Tatum does. The roster in Boston is absurd. You got the best defensive guard in basketball. You got one of the best role players in basketball in Derek White. Jaylen Brown's the best Robin in basketball. You got the unicorn in Kristaps Porzingis, who shows you how good he is when he's healthy and on the court. You got average Al, the role player. They got a good friggin' team. Peyton Pritchard's hitting half quarters off the backboard. It's a very good team there in Boston. Philadelphia, what they got? Tyrese Maxey. Tobias Harris sucks. I
mean, they paid him like he didn't suck.
I've never been so happy to get a contract off the books. We're done. We're 8:05. I'm ready to go. Can we do this again next week? Can we keep going? Can we do Mondays again? Can this be a thing? I missed this shit.
Yes. Yeah.
Any final thoughts?
No.
My
great being back on with you two.
Her appearance.
What's your cat's name? Is that your cat?
That's my Chihuahua.
Oh, your Chihuahua. I'm sorry, I seen the top. I didn't know if it was cat or a dog. What's your Chihuahua's name? That shit was just muted. They just didn't want you to say the Chihuahua's name on air. What's the Chihuahua? Muted again. Every time she says the Chihuahua's name. All right, well. Thank you guys for tuning in to Cheap Seats. Looking forward to doing this more often. We are. Jory, her Chihuahua, Kyle, Gene. See you later. Take care. Have a good one. Go Mavs.